Ah, yes. Just a particularly extreme example of how Western evangelists have influenced homophobic laws in Africa. It's a whole thing. We've talked about it before. It's very complicated. Basically, there are a bunch of conservative Christians in America who want gay people dead. And unlike most conservatives, they don't just keep it inside. They want to say that. So they go over to places that'll listen to them, and they go like, yeah, maybe you should do that. And it's a whole thing, particularly in Africa, because, well, not to generalize, but if you're gay, Africa's probably not the best place in the world for you to be. President of Uganda signed a punitive anti-gay bill on Monday that includes the death penalty, enshrining into law an intensifying crackdown against LGBTQ people in the East African nation. It is one of the world's most restrictive anti-gay measures. They're doing this here, of course, because they want to do this in America. Ted Cruz tweeted, did he? This Uganda law is horrific and wrong. Any law criminalizing homosexuality or imposing the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality is grotesque and an abomination. All civilized nations should join together in condemning this human rights abuse. So this is complicated rhetorically, right? This is a complicated situation rhetorically. My personal opinion is this, all right? Now, first of all, Matt Walsh is a smart guy. Wait, did I just say Matt Walsh? Matt Walsh is a dumb fuck. Ted Cruz is a smart guy. Ted Cruz genuinely is a smart person. You remember him back from the 2016 primary? He would have lapped Donald Trump in IQ if that was the only thing they were tested on. He's definitely a smart guy. Now, the fact that he's smart means for sure that he's a liar. No ambiguity there. You can only get away with disinfo on this level without being called a liar if you are catastrophically stupid. He's fully aware of the fact that it is the intention of the American conservative movement to bring about, if not just the outright mass extermination of queer people, then at the very least to bring about conditions to ensure its social eradication. And that's being charitable. So what he's doing right here is trying to position himself as a moderate. See? He was positioned as a moderate against Donald Trump in 2016 as well, though in a different way. Rather than him being a moderate in like a social sense, he was a moderate in like a civility sense, whereas Donald Trump was like the loud, boorish type. Ted Cruz was supposed to be like the reserved Christian conservative. And what he's doing here, I think, is trying to distinguish himself. Now, you might notice this has 3,500 quote tweets to 13.7K likes. He's gotten a lot of attention. And the problem with scrolling through this is that the attention he's getting here is split evenly between far-right people saying, whoa, you're so cucked, man. Don't you know we're going to do that here too? And far-left people saying, well, I guess not just far-left, left-leaning people broadly, saying, why are you saying this? You know you want to do this here as well. It's kind of split down the middle. Thanks, Def Noodles. What's up? Oh, look at all the blue checks on the top. Okay, but where do we draw the line? Serious question, should a tree be allowed to marry a rock? This guy probably thinks he's intelligent. Thank you, Elon, for putting the blue checks to the top. That's really, like, actually, like, subnormal IQ. He should be in a state ward of some kind. I think you've been hacked. Respectfully, what's happening in Uganda isn't my concern or priority. My question is, why is it yours? Has your account been hacked? Why this new talking point emerging? Because they don't like the whole attacking homophobia thing. See? Who are you? What is this? Okay. These blue checks, man. Why do we give a crap what Uganda wants to do? We can't even feed and house around, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I didn't mean to go through all the tweets. The point here is that I actually consider this to be a good sign for us, okay? Now let's think for a second, okay? Let's roll this all out. Donald Trump has great political intuition, in the sense of he knows that his constituency is retarded and he can say whatever he wants. Okay. But he doesn't plan. Ron DeSantis is a hollow shell of a human that is being directed by the GOP to be a more stable replacement for Trump. He's much younger, he's smarter than Trump, and what's more, he will do anything he's told to do because he is a perfect tool of the establishment. He lacks charisma, like more than a normal human. Like, he's exceptionally low charisma. because the establishment of the GOP is insane, he is also insane. But he's insane within a set of sort of controlled parameters. Ted Cruz is definitely not the person that the mainstream GOP wants to front as their preferred guy, their presidential candidate. What do you think it says about him that he's going to try to position himself, relatively speaking, as a moderate next to other people in the 2024 presidential field, which I think it's very likely that even if he doesn't directly enter into, he's going to comment on heavily. What this says to me, because I don't think that Ted Cruz is a dumb guy, I think that he understands that there is going to be a contingent of Republican voters who are looking for more moderate language on queer people, who are looking for less nonstop 24/7 anti-woke dogma. I think this is another way of indicating that the Republican base is looking for something a little bit different than what they're getting, that the right has overextended, that we're getting too much anti-woke saturation. I think it's an admission of weakness. Because Ted Cruz isn't just some random party outsider. Ted Cruz was, forgive me if I'm misremembering, the favorite to win in 2016, wasn't he? Before Trump took over. It was Ted Cruz. He was considered to be the frontliner. Trump ended up winning, but he, I think, was the, after Jeb. Was Jeb really a serious... Okay, he was a serious contender, is what I mean. He's not nobody. I think it's another positive sign. Because you can only pull that rubber band so far before it snaps, The majority of Republicans, the voters, the majority of the voters are not insanely genocidal anti-queer people. They're just not. They get roped up in the discourse. They listen to Trump talk on stage, on TV. He talks about how our country is being ruined. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's with immigrants, okay? Does anyone... You're all familiar with the stereotype, right? Of a Republican voter who is politically fervently against immigration, thinks they're taking our jobs. But then you realize that one of the best friends of this Republican voter is some guy called Pedro, who entered the country like 6 years ago, legally, mind you, and they're actually like good friends. And like he's like, yo, Pedro's a great one. Oh, when I say I'm anti-immigration, what I mean is I'm against all these illegals hopping the border. Pedro's a real... You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff like that with like there's like a lot of people, you'll vote for racist candidates, racist policies, but they've got a black friend who they really think is a good guy. Does that mean they're not really racist? Well, no, they are. But it means that their hatred doesn't extend to this like holistic, total genocidal... You know what I mean? It's an inconsistency. But at the end of the day, most Republican voters, not all of them, but most of them, are capable of the exact same feelings of empathy and warmth and compassion as you, even if politically they're stifled, even if they are cajoled by daytime radio and television programs and Fox News into suppressing those instincts that drive them towards sociable behavior. They're capable of it, and it's actually really difficult to bring a huge population of people to genocidal violence. I think that most Republican voters are just not as open to the direction the mainstream GOP is going. Do you get me? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this come across as cope to you? Because I really do believe this. I'm not saying that we're all set. I'm not saying that we're guaranteed a victory. I'm not saying that all the Republicans are going to have like a heel turn or whatever. I'm just saying that, something has to give here. And I just don't think the parties like that, at least their constituency. The party officials and representatives are sociopath demons. Again, to be clear, when I say potentially good things, I'm talking about their voters. When I'm saying bad things, I'm talking usually about their constituents, or not, the people they vote in, the people the constituents vote in. I'm sorry, I'm very tired today. I used to work in an oil refinery, and I saw this play out in real time. I bet you, most of you have at least one family member who is a representative of what I'm talking about. My grandparents are like Florida conservatives, Well, I mean, a lot of them are dead now. They're old. But the ones that are still alive, Florida conservatives, right? I haven't really talked about politics that much with them because, well, they don't know what my job is, and I'm perfectly okay with keeping it that way. But I always got the impression talking with them. Now, are some of these family members of mine homophobic? Well, yeah. But when my cousin, a woman, came out as bisexual, how did a lot of them react? Okay. Well, I hope she still has kids. I'd love to be a grandparent one day. Not total condemnation, more of a. It's just hard to bring people to that point. We're not naturally that vindictive. No, I'm not walking back the "it can happen here" message. Okay, I'm just saying that it happens here as a product of extraordinary circumstances. And even if only a small portion of the GOP voter base is genuinely genocidal, they still vote in genocidal people, So again, I'm not saying that it's all over. I'm just saying that there's more hope than a lot of people might think. Ted Cruz has already confirmed he's not running for president. He's running for Senate again. I have a feeling he's going to be an increasingly loud voice moving into 2024. I think he's going to try to, because he was one of the frontliners of the GOP before it all became a Trump party. I have a feeling that he's going to try to maneuver back a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you think they'll regroup and go after something else? I don't think they can pull out of the death spiral they're on right now towards trans people. I think they're pretty committed to this messaging. That's because he's on 2 of the rep seats in danger of flipping. Well, yeah, after the Texas freeze disaster, Cancun Cruz, yeah. Yeah, and he's pretty young, too. We'll see how things go. Unorthodox Monkey, I think it's really complicated, like the direction that people will go based on who they vote for, what they vote for. We have to remember that a full 40% of the voting age population in this country does not vote. And what's more, the more time ticks by, the more young people turn 18. Now, right now, Gen Z and millennials are really left leaning, anomalously, really, really, really left leaning in a way that's never happened before. People there's no historical comparison for this. During the 1960s, people talk about the hippie and the anti-war movements, but a lot of the hippie movement were just privileged upper middle class white kids burning their trust fund to get into group orgies and do drugs rather than, do whatever. It's not representative of this massive demographic political shift in the same way that what we see today is. With Gen Z being so out in favor of blue. Time ticks to our favor. All the time that passes, that's for us, The Republicans are old and they're faltering, and left-leaning people are young and with no end to this trend in sight. So with things already tipping in our favor, in that respect at least, we have to ask ourselves, how effectively is the GOP weaponizing the contingent of people they already have that is not growing larger, that is staying where it is or getting smaller? Probably. The only exception to this might be Latin people in the South, because I don't know what the fuck they've been on since 2020. But apart from that, it is a constricting market. So how well are they appealing to this group? And just, man, the info I've seen lately suggests to me that Republicans are starting to roll their eyes a little bit, at least some of them, a good amount of them, at the nonstop talking about trans and woke people stuff. You have to understand that genocidal rhetoric usually is propagated on a historical or contemporary myth that has a lot of importance in people's day-to-day lives, okay? Here's an example. A lot of Israeli people are fucking genocidal towards Palestinians. But, and this is not a justification of Israel's behavior, because you know how I stand on this issue, okay? Israeli people are 24/7 bombarded with propaganda about how Palestinians and Hamas are shelling their cities. Sometimes they actually do shell their cities with balloons and rocks or whatever, and tiny little rockets. They're in a constant ongoing engagement with Palestinian people, one in which they're in the wrong, by the way, the Israelis, but it is a direct engagement, which often leads to clashes and military engagements. One way, Palestinians don't have a military. Also, keep in mind, Israel, full of Jewish people, surrounded by countries that fucking hate Jewish people. If there was ever a legitimate concern for an Israeli to have, that would be it, okay? You take a look at where Israel is on the map, and you take a look at every country it borders, and it's like, wow, that's crazy, you know? They are truly deep in antagonistic territory. And again, whose fault is this, right? Like, hey, I'm not defending Israel, all right? They made foreign policy decisions. I'm only saying, you take an Israeli citizen. Do you think, given everything that's going on, could you convince them of the necessity for genocide? That it's morally right for the purposes of self-defense? Clearly the answer is yes, because a lot of them feel that way. Go back to Nazi Germany. How'd they feel about the Jews? Not great, I tell you, not great. But they just came out of World War I. They just came out of the Great Depression. Germany was economically crippled and militarily humiliated. They had a lot of grievance to blame on Jews to use as a scapegoat. Were they wrong to do so? Yeah, wasn't Jews' fault. But they had a lot going on. Now I ask you, what is being pinned on trans people? Grooming? Republicans love raping children. Try again. The country's falling? Okay. What's happening? What's happening? What are we blaming on trans people? Civilization is the women's sports. You see what I mean? You understand the problem I'm getting at here. I'm not saying it can't happen here. What I'm saying is, this is what I mean by overcommitting. The GOP has set a narrative forward where they have very little, like, emotional incentive to get their voter base behind the extremities of their positions. It's pretty difficult to, because trans people aren't, so not only are trans people not doing anything, there's not even anything to pin on them disingenuously. There's not a, like, if there wasn't, we haven't suffered some catastrophic military defeat. You know, we haven't been nuked recently. There's no like deep, heartfelt sadness or misery or hate or shame that can be redirected. The economy's not doing great for the average worker, but that's kind of been the case since Reagan, like, with the exception of, like, the Clinton years. It's just been like that for a while. We had to pull out of Afghanistan, okay? There's not much here. I understand that I'm rambling. I'm just saying that I really think the GOP has shot themselves in the foot here with their preferred target. Does this mean you're rescinding your advice that trans people buy guns? No. Absolutely. No, I'm not taking back anything I've said. This is in line with all my messaging. Don't go to Florida. Update your passport. Buy guns if you want to, if you think you can safely hold them, blah, 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 blah. You know the dealio. I'm not taking back any of that shit. Not until things are properly in the clear. And we are not properly in the clear. The funny thing is, like, I don't want to come across as, like, I don't know, I could have done better than them. But they were able, the conservatives in this country, and the liberals, mind you, to do quite a lot of, like, meaningfully hateful shit to Muslim people after 9/11. And also, we've always been, like, very callous towards the human rights of illegal immigrants. Now, illegal immigrants don't hurt our economy, but they're a lot easier to blame for problems than trans people. Like, if somebody would say, like, our economy's falling apart because of illegal immigrants, you can't really say that about trans people. Like, our economy's falling apart because of them? Really? No, not really. So it's just kind of odd they moved so hard into the trans direction when they were already gunning for immigrants with Trump, with the wall. I don't know. Fascists are insane. They're insane.